Welcome to the second episode of Road to the Oscars 2025. In the first video, we talked about Amalia Perez, but in today's video, we are going to cover the movie Conclave. And I have to say, Conclave worked for me really well. I in fact awarded this movie 4 stars on my letterbox if I'm not wrong. You can follow me on letterbox as well. There were 3 main pillars for me in this movie on which the movie actually stood tall. The first one was it's very intricately, very detail oriented and a very grippingly written screenplay. The second was performances, of course, not just the lead's performance but other supporting actors' performance as well. And the third was its music. Music plays a very important role in any movie, and this movie's music played an extremely important role in giving this movie a kind of airy, kind of haunting kind of a vibe, but we'll talk about that later. But first we have to talk about its Oscar nominations, because this is a video in which we're talking about Oscar nominated movies. So this movie is nominated in 8 Oscar categories. Including Best Picture, including Best Actor, including Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and including Best Adapted Screenplay. And I just mentioned the screenplay. That screenplay was one of the best pillars for me. And of course, it has been nominated in some other categories too, but of course, we'll talk about that later. First, we have to talk about the movie though. Right from the first couple of moments, right from say maybe a couple of minutes, I was totally engrossed in the movie. Now, I didn't know what a conclave was, but then I got to know that conclave is the process in which a new pope is elected, and it is a highly secretive process. It was actually cut off from the whole world, and there was a lot of shenanigans happening in the whole world. I didn't have any idea of such a thing existing, and after that I did a lot of reading and I got to know that it's really an extremely secretive process and no one really knows that what happens behind closed doors. So it was quite a fascinating thing to learn for me. Now I'll just give you a very good example of how well the screenplay was written. Now the whole movie is leading us in a direction, and that direction is that we as an audience should realize and should understand and should be convinced that Ralph's character, that Miss Cardinal Lawrence, is the best Pope candidate, and at the end he will be the Pope. And there were a lot of things that they sparkled upon on this exact thing. For example, that he was the one who didn't really want to be the Pope. In fact, he was about to quit what he was doing. He didn't really want to be there, and at the same time all the other candidates were kind of going outside of the race because everyone was finding dirt about everyone and there were a lot of politics going on. And there is a very good saying, and in fact it was mentioned in the movie as well. Cardinal Lawrence was talking about Bellini, that Bellini doesn't want it, therefore he's the best candidate. But in reality it was all about Lawrence. Lawrence didn't want it and Lawrence was the best candidate. So the whole movie was leading us in this direction that at the end Lawrence will be the main guy. And that is what I thought. But the movie was actually trying to deceive us. The screenplay of this movie was actually trying to deceive us. And the twist that they used at the end, they made Benitez. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. So at the end we saw Benitez was chosen and I was happy about it. I was like, okay. And at the final moments I was like, there were only 2 candidates. It's either Lawrence or it's either Benitez. It's going to be either of them. And yeah, they chose Benitez. So I was kind of satisfied there that, okay, yeah, it's satisfied. It's not a huge twist or anything like that, but it's satisfied. It kind of did its job of deceiving the audience. But then we have another twist. Now that twist is quite debatable. A lot of people think it was not necessary. Some people think, yeah, it was good. It was always leading up to that point. Benitez was created by God in a certain way, and there was no wrong in that. It was all about accepting your body and all those things that we usually see in any movie which has any kind of representation of the trans community. We have that, we definitely have that. We have that here as well. But the thing is, it was all justified, connecting it to God and God's will. So it was quite nicely wrapped up in the end. It was quite nicely packaged in the end. But as I said, the screenplay led us in a certain way and then gave us a couple of curveballs which I enjoyed watching. So therefore, for me, the screenplay was written very well. And there were a lot of layers going on in the screenplay as well. For example, we step by step get to know the dirt on everyone. And I know it is a little predictable in the way it is set up, but nonetheless, I enjoyed the whole unfolding of things, like what happened with which character and how all the politics was going on amongst those all characters, all those cardinals who are supposed to be fighting to be Pope. And in fact, there is a very well delivered line by Stanley Tucci.
If you want to defeat Tedesco,
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
it is a war, and you have to commit to a side.
That was a very powerfully, said line for me, and it really set up the tone. Like, okay, this is extremely serious, and the politics of it all, it's extremely serious as well. Now we have to talk about the performance of Ralph Fiennes.
Even so,
The welfare of the sister is my responsibility.
and this conclave is mine.
Well, his performance or his role or how he's approaching the role is quite similar to Academy Award winner Cillian Murphy from last year. Now, there is one similarity that I can point out, and that is both the characters had a lot to do, they had a lot of responsibility, but they couldn't show it through their actions. All they could do was think. Everything was happening in their head, in their mind, all the planning, all the not plotting, but all the planning, understanding everything, understanding the weight of everything, and everything was just shown through their eyes, through their facial expressions, and just like they are looking in a corner and they're just thinking about something. They're just thinking about something, thinking about something. And that is the one similarity that I picked up between Cillian Murphy's performance and Ralph Fiennes' performance. But again, Ralph did a fantastic job of holding its own. His character, as I just said, that was quite an understated character. He had a lot to do, but he just couldn't do it by throwing hands or through actions. All he had to do was slowly and carefully pick his moments, interact with characters, understand them, maybe manipulate them as well. Was fabulous to watch him. Extremely captivating performance. Now, the performance was extremely well enhanced by the music. The music really gave us a very hairy, a very haunting, a very conspiracy-ish vibe, and I enjoyed that. All these three things combined and made this movie a quite gripping tale to watch. Very gripping. And the pacing also was not off, Now, a lot of times when there is this kind of a movie where there is a bit of detectiveness as well, a bit of conspiracy-ish things, and this is a kind of movie where people are just talking. So this is a talking heavy thriller. Now, the other thriller that we know is that action thriller where we have a lot of action and all, but this kind of thriller where characters are only talking, here how they talk, what they talk about, and how the information is carried on, how the information is passed on to the audience is very important, and it's very important to make it feel not boring. A lot of people find that boring, but for me, I enjoyed this in this movie extremely well. Now, the other two things that really made this movie quite a good watch was the production design and the costume design. The costumes were quite detailed, extremely detailed work, and you can just see in the production design as well that the hall in which the voting was taking place, and fair enough, the movie is actually nominated for best costume design and best production design as well. So these are the categories in which the movie is nominated. I have to say, in each of these categories, the movie excels. That all these categories are very well deserved by this movie. Best picture, of course. Best actor in a leading role, Ralph Fiennes, of course. Actress in a supporting role, Isabella Rossellini. Now, here is a very interesting thing. Now, her performance was strong, but she didn't have a lot to do. But the fact that she has been nominated in a supporting role, yeah, it's fine. Then best editing, best production design, best adaptive screenplay. I have talked a lot about the screenplay already. Then best original score, music, and best costume design. And overall, the movie was a very well made movie. Gripping from start to finish. There are a lot of people talking. You get engrossed in the talking. You get engrossed in the politics. You follow the characters along. The music is there to just amp up all the scenes. So yeah, it was a very good watch. So this is all I had to talk about in this episode of Road to the Oscars 2025. This was Conclave, and in the next video we will be talking about Anora. Just a sneak peek, I watched Anora and it is already one of my favorite movies of the year. Yeah, so we'll meet in the next video. So I request you to please subscribe the channel because we are going to cover each and every Oscar nominated movies, and in this process I hope to connect with you guys as well to know your review of this movie in the comment section as well. So please do that, and as always, thank you so much for watching.